Good morning, little chef. If you've been following me for a while, you know I always start my morning with a big cup of coffee. Our guests are still asleep, but that means it's perfect time to start breakfast prep. I cracked some eggs into a bowl and gave them a good mix. We're starting off with the classic French omelet. Now let me show you how I was taught, little chef. The key to fantastic eggs are cooking them low and slow. So into a pan on the lowest settings, put a pat of butter and then drop in your eggs. Take a rubber spatula and scramble it until it's just set. Level out the eggs, season with salt, pepper, put in your toppings, and let it finish cooking. By scrambling it up a little bit rather than letting it just sit there, it's gonna make sure your omelet is nice and fluffy. On to the parfaits. I'll put in a couple of dollops of yogurt, some blueberries, some sweet raspberry jam, granola, and coconut flakes. My bacon was pre-cooked, so all I had to do was warm it up. All of my components for breakfast are ready. Let's serve it. For the crew, they like something really simple, so I made them some scrambled eggs and toasted bagels. What's wrong, Thurston? Is your dad leaving you? There they go. Aw, buddy. We'll take care of you. Come here. No, he wants his dad. So the storm last night, we think, took out our tender, all the navigation systems on the tender. I called it. I really thought it was lightning, and I'm pretty sure it was lightning. But the boys are trying to fix it now. Where did he come from? They came in specifically to fish, and they got here. We moved the boat out of the marina, and Ryan was on the tender here, and it lost power steering. So navigation and steering out. So the owners flew out this morning. They were here for less than 24 hours. So the bad thing about being in the Bahamas is that getting boat parts is pretty difficult. So Captain Mark was on the phone with this company back in the States all day long. We finally found the part, and we're going to have a guy fly out from that company to come fix it. So he's expected to be here tomorrow morning. I know it sounds crazy to just fly somebody out here to fix something, but this is exactly what happened last year. We had this new Wi-Fi system on board, and it wasn't working properly, so we contacted the company, and they flew somebody out to fix it. I guess this is just how the yachting industry works. I don't know much about boats. I usually just stay in my galley and cook, but it's fun to see what the boys are working on sometimes. They went ahead and ran all of these tests on the boat to make sure nothing else was not working properly. Seems like it's only the steering and navigation that's down. I went back into my galley and started on lunch prep. I'm making sushi and poke bowls, so I'll start off by brining my salmon in a little bit of water and salt. I got this sushi grade salmon from Sam's Club, and it's delicious. By brining it for about an hour before eating, it helps with firming up the texture a bit and also the taste. While that's brining, I'll get started on some creamy recipes. I'm going to do two flavors. One is going to be a blueberry cheesecake, and the other one is going to be a pistachio ice cream. The pistachio pudding mix can be a little artificial tasting, so I like to supplement that with some real pistachios. I find that peeling pistachios hurts my fingers, so I have a little trick. Take half of the pistachio shell and use it to pry open the pistachio. We're gonna give this a good mix and then put it into the freezer for 24 hours. I thought I ordered 8 pounds of salmon when I provisioned the boat. Turns out I ordered 8 fillets. So we have a lot of salmon to eat through. This is a pretty big fillet, so we're gonna do it a few different ways. I'm cubing this portion up, and we're gonna toss it with some sesame oil and soy sauce and use it for the poke bowls. My green onions in my garden were actually looking gorgeous, so I chopped those up and threw them in as well. I'll give this a light toss and it will go into the fridge to let all of those flavors marinate together. Now I'm going to try to find the most beautiful piece of this fillet of salmon. And the fattiest part, because what I'm going to do is make little slices to make sashimi. I'll just drizzle a little bit of ponzu on top and it will be a delicacy. I also want to make some spicy salmon sushi rolls, so I'm just going to mince this up. I find that the best method is to do it with 2 knives. Once you slice it one way and the other way to cube it up, just go to town. I'll season that up with some Kewpie mayo and sriracha. Now I'm getting started on the sushi rice. When you're making sushi rice, you want to make sure that you're using a short grain rice. The shorter the grain, the more starch. Starch helps with stickiness, and that's what we want when we're making sushi. So sushi and risotto, those are both made with short grain rices, and you notice that they're a lot stickier. But when you go get takeout Chinese food, you get white rice, which is a long grain rice. It's super fluffy and does not stick together. After my rice is cooked, I'll put in some sugar, salt, and rice vinegar to make it into sushi rice. I'll gently mix this together with a wooden spoon. I want to make sure that I'm incorporating everything, but also not mushing the rice together. If you work with the rice too much, it's gonna break and become gummy, which is not very pleasant when eating sushi. I know that mixing sushi rice in an Instapot is not the traditional way of doing things. But hey, I never claimed to be a sushi chef. That being said, let's make some sushi. We'll start by putting our nori down and our rice on top. Remember that the rice is really sticky, so here's a tip on how to prevent it from sticking to your fingers. I have a bowl of water that's right next to me, and whenever I grab a handful of rice, I dip my fingers in the water beforehand. Once it starts to get gummy, you are going to have rice all over your fingers, and it's not really fun to make sushi that way. I'm making a thin sheet of rice. I'm not pushing down too hard because I don't want to mush the rice, but I'm making an even layer on the whole piece of nori. This is going to be an inside-out sushi roll, so I'm going to flip the nori. 3, 2, 1. Nice dismount. We'll put in our fillings. For this one, I'm doing cream cheese and some long strips of salmon. A lot of people will put their cream cheese in a Ziploc baggie or a piping bag and make sure it's soft and then just pipe it on, but I like to use cold cream cheese and just cut it into strips. I don't have a bamboo mat on board, which is traditionally used to roll sushi, but I do have parchment paper, which is the next best thing, I guess. So we're using this to make sure everything is even. Roll it up and then give even and gentle pressure down the whole roll. The inside-out sushi roll is a little more difficult. Since the rice is on the outside, it tends to break off, but I think we got it covered. And to top the sushi, I'm putting on some sesame seeds. On to cutting the sushi, another tip for you is to make sure your knife is wet. Again, that rice is sticky, so as soon as the rice starts to cling to the knife, it's going to ruin your roll. So I'll put a bead of water on the top of my knife blade and let it run along the blade to make sure that blade is wet as I'm cutting. We made the Philly roll, let's move on to the spicy salmon roll. Same process here, I'm going to wet my fingers and lay an even bed of rice on top of the nori. Remember that salmon that I minced up and added some Kewpie mayo and sriracha? That's what's going to go in this roll. Easiest way would be to put this in a piping bag and pipe it on, but that's not what I'm doing. Now here's the best sauce that goes with sushi, in my opinion. Eel sauce. A lot of people are grossed out by it because they think it's made from eel, but it's not. All you need, equal parts soy sauce, sugar, and rice vinegar. You bring it up to a simmer until it reaches like glaze consistency. Make sure you keep an eye on it because if it boils over, it is a mess and a half. This is called eel sauce, not because it's made from eels, but it's traditionally served with eel. Man, I forgot how tedious sushi making was. And we still have to do prep for poke bowls. The vegetables I'm putting into the poke bowl are radishes, green cabbage, red cabbage, shredded carrots, and edamame. And we're trying to make a beautiful plate, so we're going to put contrasting colors next to each other. For example, I wouldn't put green cabbage next to cucumber and then next to edamame. They're all green. Boring. Look what we're doing here. We have purple cabbage, green cabbage, orange carrots, pink radishes. We got the whole rainbow going. We're going to add in our edamame now, adding a beautiful touch of green to the opposite side of where the green cabbage is. Add a nice scoop of rice right in the center of the dish. I have some seaweed salad on board, which I think makes a poke bowl. And for the star of the dish, the salmon. This has been sitting in the refrigerator and soaking up all of those wonderful flavors. Sesame and soy goes beautifully together. I take my time when I'm plating dishes, especially when they don't need to be hot when served. You eat with your eyes first. So to make this extra beautiful, we're gonna garnish it with some spicy mayo, eel sauce, and green onions. I would highly suggest purchasing a 50-cent squeeze bottle. We use these all the time in kitchens. It just makes something extra beautiful. And look at those gorgeous colors. I set up the buffet and lunch is served. That's how I feel about ginger ale. I'm only sometimes in the mood for some ginger ale. I always get it on planes. That's what I get.
Planes are when I'm sick.
What?
Ginger ale makes your stomach feel better.
You don't like plain rice? I think he said. Mealtimes are about the only time where crew mingles together. Gina's usually cleaning rooms, Brian's outside cleaning the boat, Captain Mark is doing captain stuff, and I'm cleaning or cooking. Every day after lunch, I have a midday espresso and sometimes even a chocolate. I don't know what it is, but it just seems to make the day a little better. Today, we got a boat neighbor, so these guys pulled into the slip right next to us. I noticed that the winds were starting to pick up and the clouds were getting a little gray out there. When we see a storm coming, we make sure pillows are put away and couches and tables are covered so things don't get wet. Every time it rains, the first mate Brian needs to go out and clean the boat right after, or else you're going to have water spots on the whole entire boat. If you don't dry it immediately, that means you have to go back to the first step of the process and start cleaning the boat with soap and water. Before the rain came in, I decided to take a little walk to the marina and check it out. In the upstairs area, there's a pool table, a bar, and a little sitting area. I'll usually come here at the end of the night to work on editing and call my friends and family, because it's really the only good place with Wi-Fi. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'm taking pictures.
What are you taking pictures of?
You guys are gonna make fun of me.
What?
You're gonna make fun of me.
I'm not gonna make fun of you.
Yeah, you will, over the whole loudspeaker throughout the whole marina.
So happy the other night.
Abby the other night was a chicken. Also, before the storm came in, I wanted to make sure I got some frozen product down in the hole. As I was checking my freezers, I noticed that there was some bait in my beef freezer. If it was in the bread freezer, it would be a real problem because the smell of it leaches into the bread. Let's go find out who put ballyhoo in my beef freezer. Where is he? Where's the culprit? You put ballyhoo in my beef freezer?
I think the milk freezer, maybe. I had it. They're all sealed up back. That's all I had.
Well, gee! It's now time to start dinner prep. Tonight, I'm making tahini Asian noodles with a 5-spice seared duck. For my vegetables, I'm julienning some bell peppers, red cabbage, eggplant, and red onion. The eggplant wasn't looking too hot, so I had to cut off the brown parts. Cabbage is one of my favorite vegetables to bring on this trip because it lasts for a month. It's a great way to add freshness and some green color to a dish. If you're enjoying this channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share to show your support. For the sauce, I went in with some tahini, soy sauce, oyster sauce, hoisin, sesame oil, and garlic and ginger. And for a little bit of heat, I put in some chili oil. I sauteed up all of those fresh vegetables and I'll put that into the sauce. Cook off my Chinese noodles and throw those in as well. For the duck, I'm going to score it and season it up with Chinese 5-spice. When I'm cooking duck, I'm wanting to render off that fat as much as I can, so I always start in a cold pan. It slowly brings it up to temperature and starts to melt that fat. While the duck is searing, I'll chop up some peanuts and green onions that I'll use as garnish. Our duck has a beautiful golden brown crust, so we'll flip them all. You see how much fat came out of that duck breast? That's not going to go to waste. It's liquid gold. Guess where it's going to go? You're right, into the noodles. Our duck rested for about 5 to 10 minutes. Let's slice it into it and see how we did. We're looking for a beautiful medium rare, and it looks like we got it. We'll plate up our noodles, fan the duck on top, and garnish with green onions and peanuts. Oh, and I can't forget the chili oil. The first mate is obsessed with jelly beans, so I decided to play a little joke with him and garnish it with jelly beans. For dessert, we're trying out the blueberry cheesecake ice cream in the Ninja Creami. This Ninja Creami has seriously become a habit every single night. Not only does it save freezer space because I used to have a whole freezer full of ice cream, but it's also fun to taste all these new flavors. I was so impressed how this blueberry cheesecake ice cream came out. I garnished it with some granola to add a bit of texture. It was superb.
Yeah, we got a dish for you tonight.
The crew helped with dishes, I wiped down my galley, and turned off the light, which means kitchen is closed. It takes about an hour for me to wind down for the night, so I'll go to bed around 10 to 11 o'clock every night. And wake up bright and early the next morning. Bye, little chef.